Let's praise Bob. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I am pleased to talk to documentary filmmaker Sandy K. Boone about her documentary, J.R. Bob Dobbs and the Church of the SubGenius. Sandy, I have been aware of J.R. Bob Dobbs since I was a punk rock kid in the 80s.
Okay.
I'm sure you were enamored with that image everybody has seen of that sort of 50s dad with the pipe and like that weird.
You froze.
Almost like psychotic look on his face, right? Like that weird kind of look. When did you first become aware of the Church of the SubGenius and J.R. Bob Dobbs?
Actually, my late husband, David Boone, that did Invasion of the Lumen People, was based on the Church of the SubGenius. And that was in early 79 when we met Doug Smith, and they were involved in setting up the Church of the SubGenius at that time. And we had just we were in Dallas, and we just moved to Austin for him to go get his master's in film at the University of Texas.
Well, I feel like people, when they even discover, I remember just being obsessed with things like, do you remember Chick Tracks and Jack Chick?
Yeah.
Those little cartoons where basically the lesson was, if you don't accept Jesus, you will go to hell.
Exactly.
And every one of those comics was like, you did drugs, you're going to hell. You had premarital sex, you're going to hell.
Right.
Bob isn't quite as Bob is more merciful, let's say, but it is a for those that don't know, it's a satirical religion, and does that sound? It's fairly accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's more than that. Can you tell, for people that don't know, like kind of how the satirical religion got started?
Okay.
And also like where, the documentary does this very well, telling this story, but how this all like kind of blew up into this thing where like Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo's like a fan, right?
Yes, exactly. In fact, it was basically a boys club, and actually, the story is that my late husband was agnostic, and I was actually involved in church and on the board of a regular Christian church, and we all met Doug through a dear friend of ours, Tim Crane, and we also met Philo. All of them were based in Dallas, and my husband got very involved. They loved it because it involved all this tongue-in-cheek humor, and they were just having a blast with it, the creativity and the performance art. And so what was going on was that there was difficulty. These guys were all educated, and most of them had master's degrees. They could not find jobs, and they were it was very much like, they were mad as hell, and they weren't going to take it anymore. And at the time, you have to understand that organized religion, Christian religion, there were these televangelists that were on the air. They were very popular then, and they were selling prayer cloths for $10. Well, the minimum wage was less than $5. And so they were just furious. And they said, by damn, basically, if they can do it, we can do it. We're going to form a religion. So that's how it all began. And they said, triple your money back, and Bob Dobbs will triple your money back in your religion, and you'll give us this much money, and anybody will give us $1. Basically, if they can get Jim Jones to kill, these people will all kill themselves during this call, at least they'll give us $1. And they were shocked because they ended up with all the money started coming in, and everybody was so excited about this, and basically the weirdos and the pissed off united, and it grew from there.
Well, it's the only religion that at least I'm aware of that has a sense of humor about itself, right? Like, it's like,
exactly.
I feel like they did it as a joke. It's not like Scientology, where I feel like that was created specifically for I mean, if you've watched any of the documentaries on Scientology, it's a little bit frightening, but I feel like this was done with a sense of humor in mind as
Right.
kind of a goof, and then it blew up. And I mean, I don't even know though if the people that were into it, like myself, I
Right.
think we were all in on the joke. I don't think, I mean, were there fanatical people that were like
Well,
way into it that was scary, right? Like,
exactly. That's when it got scary, because it was a big joke, and it was always supposed to be a joke and a satire. And then there were a lot of lonely, broken people that, and they decided that this was going to replace their own belief system, whatever that was, and they did. And there were people that came to some of these big events and literally were furious with Doug when he tried not to break character, but then he had to start breaking character because people believed him. He goes, no, people were screaming at him going, these people in Dallas, they're going to, blow you up. They're not, this isn't Saturday Night Live. They were furious. And Doug's going, no, dude, we all got stoned one night and we just made this up. It's supposed to be fun, but they weren't having it, and then Doug, with money, started getting, guns being sent to him in the mail and saying, we'll back you. You tell us whoever says anything negative and we'll take care of them. I mean, it scared Doug half to death because it was supposed to be a fake cult, not a real cult. And they really were promoting think for yourself, and that, and enjoy your life and have slack and choose to be creative in the life that you want. And people there were just those lonely people. And it happens in every faith and every group. If they just end up, there's always that one person that just can't or doesn't wants to believe it was made up. That was made up.
Well, yeah, I do think, like, I got it from the beginning. I mean, it was like, this is taken with a sense of humor, but I do feel that almost with anything, not just even with things like Star Trek, there are people who take Star Trek too seriously, of all things, and believe that this is, a real thing. And I think like anything like that will, the fringe group that it may attract can be a little frightening. But this doc is, I mean, first of all, I love Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Love Austin, not just the barbecue and the music, but also just there is an Austin vibe. I mean, that whole thing of keep Austin weird, right? Like that. I mean, it's kind of that. I mean, that phrase has kind of been co-opted, or whatnot. But I mean, the vibe of that town is unlike. It has a personality all its own. The city, so it doesn't surprise me that Church of the SubGenius came from that. Now you did a Kickstarter to raise money for the doc, which I contributed to. I contributed to a bunch of different Kickstarters.
Oh, okay.
I just know that when you contribute to a Kickstarter for a movie, you just you got to, what, movies take a lot of time. As someone who has
really do. Yeah.
I've made a lot of films, but I made films, and boy, it's a journey, as you're well aware. This movie, though, did it play South by Southwest? In
fact, in 2019, we won a position at South by Southwest. We were accepted for the Visions program for a doc because they couldn't decide. I mean, that it did. We talked about cults and how politics is using more cult practices, and it was educational, but it was also funny and fun. How can you be a genius and not be funny? And so, and we used. They'd never seen us. We used animation along with a lot of footage that was shot from the past, plus newscasts and stuff like that about SubGenius. So anyway, they didn't know, they had never seen a doc quite like this one. And so it went to South by Southwest. It did really well. And actually, for one entire year in 2019, I've been to Melbourne, Australia. I've been to Nottingham, England. We've been all over the world. All over. Canada has a huge SubGenius group. Australia loves the SubGenius. And it was like, I was shocked, that a lot of people think, oh, this was started in Dallas, Texas, and this little Texas thing. And a lot of people were worried the film wasn't going to do well because they were thinking it's Texas. And I'm going, oh, no, these people are known everywhere. And I was so for one solid year, I traveled and went from film festival to film festival, and we won 4 or 5 awards, and I was treated so kindly, and people were so excited. You know, I'm going, wait a minute, I'm not really a SubGenius. It was my late husband, but it didn't matter. They just went. They were so happy that someone brought this out of the closet, because it was, you know, it was slowing down. It didn't have the momentum it finally had, and basically momentum's being picked up and it's going full blast again. So we're really, really excited. And you mentioned Scientology earlier, and I want to make sure. Doug, I knew Doug when I was 20, and we started this documentary actually when I was 58. And Doug and I had connected again, and he was saying, I said, Doug, you know, he goes, I trust you. And you know, he said, it's time. He said, because we're all getting older, and I don't want to die and this thing turn into a real cult, a Scientology or Mormonism. And he goes, I want people to know this is the truth, you know. And he said that would just, he said, and Doug is so funny. He believed, I've been staying. He believed that he believes Scientology and Mormonism really was just a joke at first, and that was meant to be, and it turned into a religion.
I mean, who knows what people were thinking thousands of years ago with certain religions, you know, and some, you know, I don't know, but I feel like everyone that I knew that knew what, you know, J.R. Bob Dobbs was like, they knew that they were in on the joke. And there were, I mean, God, I've seen everything from like tattoos to t-shirts to merch and whatnot, like that image of the sort of 50s dad with the, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Like, there's something about that. Is it now? I mean, you talk about it in the doc, but that came from Clipart. Is that true? Like, obviously, it started as Clipart.
Right. Philo Drummond and I forgot what Philo's other name is, but anyway, Philo Drummond and Doug worked at AT&T a long time ago as a salesperson, and they had no money, and they were saying, well, where are we going to get the, you know, who's going to be Bob? And he goes, I have all this clip art, it's free. And so they literally were going through a book and found that's it. They both hit the picture and went, that's Bob. And so boom, that's how it all got started.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's also been enhanced, reinterpreted, repainted. Oh, yes. I mean, like that. The primary image has remained the same from the beginning.
Right.
You know, there's even a Devo cover that kind of uses an interpretation of the, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm ecstatic that I knew about the festival journey. Didn't know about the making of it. What's amazing about the film also is the amount of archival footage that you found, news footage and home videos that were shot by people.
And that's just a tiny little bit. We couldn't use it all. It was really, oh my goodness. It was not a warehouse, but it was like a huge storage unit of footage. And you know, it was done on tapes and little Super 8, and I had to, that's what took so long to make this movie, is that we had to transfer it to make it usable so we could even see it, you know. Right. And and some of it over time, I mean, Doug tried to keep it as safe as possible, but over time, I mean, things just, you know, the unit they were keeping it in was too warm, and a lot of it was ruined. But oh my goodness, no, this was a teeny tiny bit of that footage. It's amazing how many things that Doug and Philo were able to keep. Yeah,
I'm working on a documentary right now, and the archival process is crazy. From media, all types of things, scanning photos. For one project, I have 5,000 pictures. It's anything that involves anything archival, I'm just in admiration and awe of, because making those choices and just dealing with all the mixed media presents so many challenges.
Oh, you can be overwhelmed. And a lot of people, I think, are going, well, wait a minute, so-and-so should have been in there. And I'm going, guys, it's, you know, already, it was plenty, I couldn't make it any longer. And we had to make some decisions on how would it fit out in the world, tell the SubGenius story, but still keep it relevant, you know, with cults and all and political systems and the us versus them, and let that all come in. So it could fit in any culture, and everybody could recognize, well, they recognize Bob Dobbs, but they could, that character is in any culture, but also just everybody could sympathize and understand where we were coming from. They've experienced that. Yeah.
Well, it's a remarkable documentary. I want to thank you for being on the Film Threat podcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. If you go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat, hey, you're a doc filmmaker. There are over 1 million plus clips that you can use. You just subscribe to the service and you have access to all of that, music, special effects. I do, before you go though, I do want to ask, and I got to remind people too, the documentary is out now. It is on iTunes, video on demand platforms, wherever you buy your movies. I usually go between iTunes and Vudu and whatnot, and Amazon Prime also. I'm an Amazon Prime guy.
Okay.
A lot of places to get good indie films now. But it's out like as we're doing this. So I do want to ask, like, what is if you had to sort of distill it for yourself, what does Church of the SubGenius mean? What does it mean at the end of the day?
It means that it's okay to be an individual and to think for yourself and to choose the life that you want to live and live it to the fullest. And it's all about, there's all sorts of definitions for slack, but that's slack.
Well, that is probably the opposite of the meaning of almost every other religion.
That's true.
It's all, so that's why I was drawn to it, because it was sort of the alternative, kind of like cool, like you just had to know about it thing. Sandy, thank you so much for being on the Film Threat podcast. Congratulations on the movie. It's out now, so everybody check it out. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.